Hi, this is Rosetta with Rosetta Grows. And people tell me all the time, I can't grow houseplants. I don't have a green thumb. But let me tell you a little secret, neither do I. Houseplant growing doesn't require some magical plant sense. Really, it just requires some basic understanding and some basic tips and tricks to grow multiple different kinds of houseplants. It's not as hard as you think. This is actually the beginning of a multi-part series. I'm so excited. This series is going to break down plant care into really easy, digestible segments so that you can get the most out of plant care. It's not that hard to keep your plants alive, and I'm going to break down watering and fertilization and soil and light and all of that. Today I'm just laying out the groundwork for the basics. If you're really interested, hit like, hit subscribe below so that you can get alerted to the new videos on Fridays. I went from 0 to 200 or more plants really quickly. My obsession was intense, is still intense. And part of that obsession is really researching and trying to understand how plants grow, why they grow, what makes them grow. And so part of my passion is just really taking all that knowledge, which I've gotten from a lot of different sources, and accumulating it together and giving it to you to help you keep your plants alive. So the very first thing that you're going to want to understand about plants, which is so basic and it seems so silly to say, but really plants are living beings. They're alive. And yes, I know we use them for decor, we use them as aesthetic pieces, but understanding that this is a living thing and having that kind of be part of your mental game and going in with plants is knowing that they're alive, it's going to make care so much more natural and easy for you. Knowing that this plant is a living thing and knowing that it was grown outside is going to go so far in helping you understand plant care, right? This was grown in a greenhouse most likely, but originally this wasn't grown in a greenhouse. It was growing on a tree somewhere in a jungle. So it's our job as plant owners, plant parents, as is the new lingo, to treat plants as if they are in their native habitat and to give them the best conditions to emulate that natural habitat. These plants are predisposed to want certain conditions. So if we can emulate those conditions as best we can, we're going to have much better chances for success. We're going to have healthier plants. We're going to have more beautiful plants. They're going to be greener and more lush and less brown and et cetera, et cetera. We're just going to have better luck if we can emulate how they have grown in the wild. So tell me, how many plants have you killed? Go ahead and comment below. You'll see my answer down there too. It's probably higher than you think. This one, still going. It happens, but let's get better at it so it stops happening. Tell me below. Just be honest. How many have you killed? The second thing you need to know is what your plant needs. So that seems easy, right? It might not always be that easy. How many times have I come home from, let's say, the grocery store with a tropical plant that just says, tropical plant, keep moist, bright light? What? What does that even mean? It's best to know exactly what kind of plant you're dealing with in order to give it its best care. It's easy to figure out what kind of plant you have, especially if you had purchased it at a grocery store or a local nursery. It means it's probably fairly popular. So definitely ask a store member if they know. If it's at a grocery store, they might not, but definitely someone at the nursery is going to be able to point you in the right direction. Of course, Google can. If you can just put enough descriptors in, you might be able to see an image. But they also have apps you can take pictures, and I don't use those specifically, but you can click it and it'll give you some options of what it thinks it might be, and you can diagnose it with or identify it with the pictures. Head over to Rosetta Grows, pop a picture in there, and I'd be happy to look at it and let you know what I think, and the other members of the community would definitely let you know what they think too. So there's multiple ways to figure out what your plant needs, but that is really key. You can't give your plant what it needs if you don't know what it needs, and not all tropical plants need the same light and water and air requirements. They just don't. So be sure to know what it needs, otherwise you're going to have a more difficult time having success. Okay, and speaking of what plants need, let's just take a really quick elementary tour through some plant biology. This is the foliage of a plant, right? This is why we prize it, and this is what we look for when we're choosing which kind of plant that we want. But it has a job to do, right? It needs to photosynthesize in order for the plant to grow. And what does it need to photosynthesize? Yep, you got it. Sunlight. Plants need light in order to grow. And in order to have an idea of how much light you need for this plant to grow and to be successful, you need to know how much light it needs. That information alone is really going to help you figure out where to place this plant in your home. And I'm sorry to break it to you, we can't just decide where a plant looks cutest and put it there. I mean, you can. You really can, but you can't expect it to live for a long time if it's not in its optimal light conditions. So you can't just shove a plant in the corner and think it's going to live there in a darkly lit spot. You really have to take into consideration, sure, the aesthetics, but also what kind of light you have and how the plant will operate in that light. I'll be going over light in greater detail in another episode. I'm going to take light down. We're going to figure out lighting so that you can have your best chances of success. But basically what you need to know is plants need light. Plants need light. You can't just get them and expect them to grow if you just put them anywhere. All right, so what else do plants need? Plants need water. Everything that is living needs water, and plants need a lot of water actually because they are 90% water, and they use water to uptake nutrients from the soil. It goes out into the leaves and it transpires, and in that process it creates or it collects carbon dioxide, and that's converted to sugars, which helps the whole thing grow. So very, very basically, that is the cycle for plants. But they need that water in order to grow. And you're going to notice when things aren't having enough water because they're going to wilt. That water is helping them keep their bones and hold upright. Okay, great. So plants need water, but watering can be tricky, particularly if you don't know how much water your plant needs. And I am guilty as charged. I have gotten plants before and I thought, well, it kind of looks like this plant or it kind of looks like that plant. And so I've just purchased it and I watered it willy-nilly and I haven't had great success. I know that it seems fairly easy, like, oh, just water them once a week and everything will be fine, but that's not the case for sure. So knowing what your plant needs is essential for light and for water. Are you getting it? Knowing what your plant needs? Definitely the most important thing to know. I'm going to be covering watering in a whole nother episode just devoted completely to watering. So you really want to stay tuned for that. In terms of the very basics, mostly it's important to understand that we need to emulate plants' environment as much as possible in order for that plant to thrive and do its very best. And in order to give it its best care with its best light and best watering conditions, we need to know what the plant is. So it's very simple. I told you it's going to be basics, but I feel like that was kind of stuff that I caught on to later in my plant game. But that really is the first basics. We're going to build on that in the future episodes. We're going to get more detailed about each one of those topics. But I just want you to understand that it really is up to us to care best for our plants with just understanding. It's very, very simple. Just understanding what they need is going to go so far into emulate what they normally grow in nature. So stay tuned for all the episodes in the future. And in the meantime, if you have questions about your plant, please, please, please feel free to hop over onto Facebook, the Rosetta Grows group. Go ahead and join that and ask me whatever plant questions you have. I love to answer questions about plants. That's like, I would do that all day if I could. Also, head over to Instagram and check out some of my video highlights because that might be able to help you out in terms of plant care. There's tips and tricks and just different things going on over there. So go ahead and head over there and give me a follow so that you can be up to date on what's happening at Rosetta Grows on Instagram. If you liked today's episode and you're excited about next week's episode where we dive further into plant care, be sure to like and go ahead and click on my face over here to subscribe, or you can subscribe with the red button below. I'm super excited about next week's episode. I'll see you then.